All right, we are recording. So Rishel, thank you so much for talking to us here. At the end of the day, my goal is to just really bring local businesses together. We are in it together. So that's my big thing here. We are in it together. It is about talking truthfully and honestly about some of the challenges we're faced with and some information. So today I have Rishel. She's a mortgage broker with custom mortgages for about 15 years now, recognized in her community, loves her neighborhood in North Burnaby and community and helping people. And she's absolutely paramount and knowledgeable about mortgages and finance. So I am so grateful to have Rishel here dedicating some of her time to be able to talk to us and answer some of our questions. So Rishel, thank you so much. Can you maybe just introduce yourself really briefly? You could probably do a much better introduction than me, and tell us a little bit about yourself, some of the challenges that you're faced with today, right now, where things are. I know a lot of businesses are, so I'd love to kind of hear about your business and how you're dealing with everything, and also what you're seeing out there with other local businesses being so involved in the community.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for including me in this, and for always being a force of connecting businesses in our community. You do a great job, and a pleasure to speak with you today. Yes, in North Burnaby, I volunteer with the Business Improvement Association, and it's been just a complete change walking the streets, seeing the closed shops, and it actually brings me to tears. And knowing the financial impact of what those businesses are feeling and helping my clients through those challenges has been just a very humbling experience. And certainly there are ways of protecting yourself and helping yourself be more resilient in these times. While none of us saw this coming, to this extent, and thanks to the government programs, has actually helped out considerably with respect to keeping credit going and keeping mortgage financing available. It would have been a lot worse without the government programs. So it's not just an individual's benefit that these programs are providing. It's actually keeping money flowing in our economy in general. When it comes to mortgage renewals, rates are lower thanks to these government programs, keeping the cost of lending lower for banks than they otherwise would have been if banks had to shoulder all of the I guess free market actors in play right now. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And what are you finding that the banks, are they looking for something different? Are they assessing risk differently? I mean, things have changed for all of us, for people's jobs, people's businesses. It's a changing world. So how are they looking at risk? How are they looking at applications right now? If it's for yourself or your mortgage colleagues, like what are we looking at for buyers?
Yes. First and foremost, as I've with buyers, we would get pre-approvals, and those, they would not guarantee the money. It would be a rate hold. In the pre-COVID-19 times, the chances of someone losing their job would be much less.
Mm-hmm.
Now what's happening is, even though you have a pre-approval, the bank will be confirming that you actually still have your job. And you need to be prepared for that when buying, that at the time of the pre-approval, the only thing that's guaranteed is the interest rate. Okay. For a certain period. Otherwise, it goes through the entire underwriting application at the time of making an offer all over again. So income confirmations are upfront. Clients at least have the peace of mind that once they get an approval from the bank, thankfully, not every bank, but most of the banks have said, so this is something important to confirm, that they will not check on income again later. So as long as you have your job at time of getting the approval and have provided all the necessary documentation, in order to keep purchase transactions going, the banks understand there has to be some way to count on the approval. So they've said, you know what, we're going to just assume that the job is still there, just like we do like after we give a mortgage at renewal. We don't confirm at renewal that a person still has their job if they're staying with their current lender.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as you've got for your with your purchase contract a firm mortgage approval for that specific property and no changes are made, then you can count on that financing even if your closing isn't going to be for another few months.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay. And that's really good to know, right? So people don't have to worry if they remove subjects and then they wait a couple of months for completion and possession, and they don't have to be too concerned as long as nothing's changed in their job, of course. Do the bank look differently at essential businesses as opposed to maybe something that's maybe not as classified as essential in our industry? Do they look at it differently?
Well, as long as the business is currently in operation and they do ask for proof of that it is currently open at time of application, then, like I said, once the approval is given, there will be no secondary checks or subsequent concerns about the business. So it's just a matter of getting that approval commitment. The self-employed businesses that used to qualify just on 2019 and 2018, for example, a 2-year average of income, yes, those will undergo a certain additional scrutiny in terms of the viability of the business moving forward. Unfortunately, there are some businesses that will face challenges that are, will have different patterns afterwards and may have to redesign their business model. So as long as they can explain the story of how they're going to cope with the change of the business model, and we can tell their story about how they're going to make it work, then absolutely, it's the banks want to lend and they want to support everyone in continuing to buy their home. And so it's cautiously optimistic.
Okay, great. So the banks are looking at different ways to figure things out and learn about the businesses, see how they're maybe doing things differently, but still keeping afloat. I know restaurants are delivering. There's like many different things that people are doing to get creative and do different things. What about for mortgage brokers? What are most people doing right now to get for work? I know working from home is challenging for a lot of people. Having the kids out of school. Let's talk about that. I know that you and I spoke about that briefly before, and I do want to touch on that. I think it's a really important topic about the challenges that we're all facing, and it's a true challenge. I mean, working from home, dealing with the kids, having them educated online, it's and still working and being available to do housework and all this stuff. I can only imagine it being extremely difficult. People must be ripping out their hair right now. I do want to speak to that because I think that's a really important topic to small businesses.
Well, yes, and some of the greatest memes have come out of this history, like the look of someone's house when their kids are home. Yeah, people are never going to look at. There's going to be a newfound appreciation for school, for sure. But yeah, with all the challenges and additional TV hours, I'd say we're blessed to have so much technology to keep the kids occupied, and Scholastic and all these educational providers have done such a great job of making available so many online tools for kids. I think there's positives from it, while it certainly redefines the the atmosphere of work, like the level of multitasking in one's head, be it the mom or the dad, whoever's working from home with the kids around. It's definitely mentally an additional juggle compared to when you can just go to the office and not have to think about the kids. But yeah, I'd say that it's amazing what human beings can accomplish when we're forced to. And for some businesses, this may become the new normal, working from home. Granted, the kids won't be there, but it's interesting how many businesses that thought, oh, we have to have an office and um, people have to come to us. For example, now mortgage transactions can be completely done without leaving the home. So our industry, where we initially would meet with clients in person at least once, has changed. Then furthermore, the appraisals, a lot of lenders are not requiring a full appraisal. So just a drive-by desktop and based on recent sales, which may or may not benefit certain clients, but at least it gives a value and allows the transaction to proceed without someone going in physically. And the newest one is the land titles. So the ability for lawyers to actually just video conference like we are now, assigning is just revolutionary. That's never been done before. So it's interesting how we find a way. And while certainly the kids are not getting the quality of education they they deserve, but it's different things they're learning. So again, resiliency, just finding another way to get through this together. Like you said, we're in this together.
Mm-hmm.
And I commend the teachers certainly for everyone is doing something a little bit differently. And my kids, my youngest is in preschool and my other one in kindergarten. And a kindergarten teacher to begin with is an amazing person to have 35-year-olds, 6-year-olds, but to actually then deal with them on Zoom and keep their attention is phenomenal. And so I really think we're all learning new skills and new ways of helping each other as every business is aiming to do. And so there'll be some new work behaviors coming out of this for sure, I think. New ways.
I love that. And I love that you mentioned that, because I keep thinking about that too. It's like, what's next for us? Like I do listing presentations on Zoom now, and we're able to do contracts through online, of course, and we were able to do that before, but we did listing presentations in person, and I would get videos and photos from clients, and we would just exchange that, and we would do it through digital. And it's such an interesting way to do things. And I think even in our listings and the way we present properties, it's changing as well. We want to make sure we do so much more online, so much more video. So that's just in my industry. And in yours as well, and many other businesses are going to be doing things differently. So this has forced us to change things so rapidly and adjust. And I love that you touched on that. It's really adjusting and pivoting to the new way. And still, instead of fighting it, we're just pivoting and making it happen, and still finding ways to do things differently in creative ways, and having fun with it. I know it's not easy and it's difficult, but it's finding something positive in that whole experience. And it's fantastic that you touched on it. I love it. I also wanted to ask you, I have some questions here. How do you think, okay, I want to get your advice actually for the people about moving forward. Obviously we're having financial challenges. A lot of people are getting help from the government and so forth. Everybody's faced with different challenges in their business and personal. And what advice would you give them to keep up their credit score, to keep their financial situation strong? I think that's a really important topic, and just to keep that going. So when they are ready to get back into maybe full-time positions, or their business is back to normal, and they want to make sure they keep that good. And I know that a lot of places won't charge interest on late payments. A lot of places have given a lot of leeway. So that's helpful, but it's also important for us to still keep that in mind, to keep our credit score going, to keep our financial situation strong.
Yes, thank you for asking that. It's something I'm quite passionate about, is being what I call debt effective. if we had no debt, obviously it's a lot easier to weather times like this, but most of us are juggling debt and have only enough to get us from one month to the next. So what happens when then you're laid off, and even waiting for the government assistance is a hardship for many people. And what I found is the best thing to do is talk to someone. So talk to an advisor. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable. There's no judgment, and it's all about effort. So I find if you're scared of debt, it only becomes a problem when you don't face it. And when you actually face it and write down your numbers and actually look at your credit card, in these days of physical distancing, we are spending less, I would argue. So, look at your essentials, see where you can save money, certainly, and really go through your budget. It's something we should do every year. So again, this is just forcing us to make sure we do it. I know a lot of people mention they're getting their wills done now because they're realizing how, if you're diagnosed with COVID and then have to be in isolation or worse, the hospital, how difficult that makes accomplishing day-to-day tasks and making sure you have the necessary paperwork so that someone can do that on your behalf. So when it comes to mortgages, there's definitely some tips. I encourage people to contact me after, and we're happy to provide individual recommendations. But largely, the number one ones are communicate with your credit card company or your line of credit. If you don't think you can make the payment, don't just ignore it. So yes, be proactive, make the call, because they are there to help arrange for deferments. But if it's after the fact, if you've missed the date and then phone, it's too late. So you really need to be proactive and reach out for help. And then when it comes to mortgage deferral, it's certainly an easy, and because it's deferring the payment, it does become interest on interest. A mortgage rate, at least, is one of the lowest interest rates that people face. So having a mortgage interest on interest compound is better than a credit card. And with at least some of that cash flow that is opened up from the mortgage deferral, I would recommend making an extra payment on the credit card. And you, depending on how much you make on the credit card, you could actually be financially ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Deferred and then applied that cash towards a higher rate debt.
I love that. And that's such a brilliant idea. So basically you defer the mortgage. You're not necessarily paying your mortgage for those months, but you put that amount, if possible, or as much as possible, of that mortgage amount that you would have paid towards the mortgage towards credit cards, which are 19, 20, 21%, and department store cards even more. So I love that idea. Thank you so much, Rishel. I haven't even thought about that. So that's brilliant. I think that's a really good tidbit.
Thanks. And I think the other comment we've had from clients are those that are retired and their investments have underperformed this year, and they're nervous about when it's going to bounce back and how to help their families, their kids, and they may have a lot of equity in their home. And we have so many different ways to access that equity, but one of them got a bad rap, I find, in previous years, and that's the CHIP mortgage. And it was at a higher rate before, and now it's just over 5%. And really, it's something that can help people stay in their home where they have a more controlled environment. And certainly as we see what the care homes are facing, that the longer you can stay in your home, the better, I would argue. And the rise of multi-generational homes, the return of that, where you look after each other in the same home, or hire some help but have the parents in a basement suite, so then there's more contact, more control of the environment. And I would say it's going to be some great buying opportunities later this year. So if this is something that families were thinking of, as a way of buying a home that they could all live in together, that this is when you want to really contact your realtor, talk with them about what the price range is, and the area that would work for you and your parents, and then talk with a mortgage broker that can help you understand what options there are to reaching that.
I love that. That's great. That's really, really great. Rishel, I loved having you on here. I mean, you're a wealth of information, and I know that if people need anything, they can reach out to you. You're super quick to respond, and just with so much detail. That's just paramount. So I really appreciate that. I do want to end on a very positive note, and I want to ask you, what 3 things are you grateful for right now?
Well, I would say the sunshine for sure. I can't imagine the rest of Canada going through this in winter. We are so lucky. Um, and just thankful for human nature, that seeing everyone pull together, and those that are having a tough time feeling welcomed to reach out and and talk to someone, I think is just seeing the best of humanity coming through. So I'm grateful for that. And thirdly, technology, I would say. I mean, I yeah, it's remarkable how we are still being able to accomplish as much as we can now through this.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. Technology is amazing when it works. But thank you so much, Rishel, again. I'll put your contact information below on the YouTube, just to make sure that we do have a way to contact you. Yeah, and people can reach out, and I'm sure you'll be very grateful to talk to anybody that needs some help with either their financing or getting pre-approved, or kind of seeing what they can do to get pre-approved later on. So there's some opportunities there.
Thank you, Deanna, and I wish you a wonderful weekend. And the what you're doing to connecting businesses is much appreciated.
Thank
Thank you.
you. Thanks, Rishel. I loved having you. Thank you so much, and have a great day. You have a great weekend as well.
Thank you. Bye for
Okay.
now.